The point is, when you eat a lot of ultra-processed food, the trick of what it's doing to you is that your brain doesn't even recognize that it's eating food. What are you feeding your mind? Is it nourishing your mind, or is it robbing your mind of nutrients? Scrolling is unequivocally, absolutely, scientifically proven to rob nourishment from your brain. Welcome back to another episode of Love, Life, and Legacy, the podcast dedicated to helping you navigate these hypersexualized times. Now, everybody, I am no health expert. I am an expert in, being 5'7". I know that pretty well. It's a very specific height. All I know is I'm taller than Tom Cruise, okay? So as short as I am, at least I'm not that short. But in today's episode, Benji and I are actually going to talk about ultra-processed living, okay? There's a term in food and food science called ultra-processed food. We get into what that is, but it's also an analogy for what junk food does to our physical bodies is akin to what junk social media or junk conversations, junk relationships do to our mind, our heart, our soul. So if you can identify junk food, and if you can start to wean yourself off and get what is truly nutritious in you in terms of putting nutritious things into your mind through what you see and the conversations that you're part of and what you learn about, you're going to be a lot happier. And here at High Noon, the goal is to help you to create a life, an experience of life that you don't want to escape from. And that requires a lot of intentionality. So we can really help you to weed out these junk food habits that you have in your life so that you can eat exactly what you need to be eating mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically. So let's get into it. Welcome back to another day here on planet Earth, starring Benjamin and Andrew Lau.
Planet Love, Life, and Legacy. Welcome, guys.
Can you try to say the actual intro, Benji? What's
Welcome
the thing
back
that I say?
to another episode of Love, Life, and Legacy, the podcast dedicated to helping you navigate these hypersexualized times of ours.
Wow,
Something of that
brainwashing works, everybody. It works. Don't deny what your grandma said about brainwashing. It's true. I've done it. What were you gonna say? You gonna say something before the podcast? Something?
Oh, you were making
important.
fun of my flamboyant shirt, or you were mentioning in a very subtle way that my shirt is flamboyant for y'all that are watching on YouTube, and then I was going to say today I was reflecting on my school childhood, and the moment that my mom took me out of schooling was because I said a naughty word to a kid. I called a kid gay, and I had never done that before, but I called him gay, and I didn't know what that meant. I was 8 years old, and that is why she took me out of school, because I got in trouble, and she didn't like the environment that I was in. So that is what I was going to mention to you before we started recording,
Well,
Andrew.
I see.
Yeah.
That's a really funny kind of math sequences. My son said something bad, so therefore the environment must be bad. So I have to take my son who said something bad out of the environment that he's poisoning with his bad.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Just to be
Parents.
for the record, I don't
Parents.
think the kid was gay.
yeah.
I would never call a gay person gay for being gay. It's probably some kid I was like, stop being so gay, like we used to say back in the day, right?
I just can't wait for this conversation to be over.
There you go.
Yeah. Obviously, words change. Words change and understandings change. This is how professional I am. Segue, understanding of food and health changes. Just like our concepts about everything is supposed to evolve. That's the thing that's really frustrating about most religions is they're like, their entire status of pretty much every religion, right, is they're hearkening back to the past and always talking about the past and about the future, like some inevitable future when somebody's going to come and do something. But it's seldom about like evolving, the evolution. They just like, they're either stuck 2,000 years ago or they're waiting for this inevitable event to occur that's going to
Yeah.
save them. And that doesn't mean that that's what the religions are. That's just how they're interpreted a lot of times, even ours, incredibly sometimes. But what I love about our faith in particular is that it is about evolution. It's like, hey, like, dust off your faith. We use that wineskins analogy a lot around here, but it's just the idea of updating your hard drive and your software constantly. And that's what we want to do with you today, about looking at ultra processed living, right? Because this is actually a bit of a buzzword, I guess, but it's just, we're seeing the ramifications of all of the 80s. All I remember, think about Ninja Turtles. This predates a lot of you, but Ninja Turtles, what were they eating? It was Pizza Hut. Straight up pizza. And
Sewer pizza, yeah.
every cool kid in every movie in the 80s was drinking Pepsi Cola. 100% of the time. And Doritos. It was always Doritos, Pepsi, and Pizza Hut. These were the brands of the 80s. And there's this revolution of just eating junk food became really cool. And I think, I've studied a little bit about this, and part of it was convenience, for sure. People were like, whoa, we don't have to cook every night. We could go out. But the other part was just kind of like a status thing of like, we don't have to cook every night, right? And then it just became this nice, convenient show of, hey, we've evolved to this place in our society where we're so modern that other people cook our food and they deliver it to us, or they package it in these big bags or whatever. Things became cheaper too. But what we're realizing now is that if you look at ultra processed food, there's a lot of content online that, because you hear this term a lot, but it's a really important term to understand. What does it mean to be processed, like whole and intact as its original form, or ultra processed? And like things like milk most of it has been, unless you drink raw milk, which is hard to find, it's been through a process of being heated up, right? This is called pasteurization, and they do that with juice sometimes. If you look at orange juice, do you know how they make orange juice? Have you ever seen that?
I just know it says 100% orange juice on every orange juice you see in the grocery store.
It's such a misnomer though, because they heat it up, they pasteurize it to like clean it up, but then in that process, all the nutrients and the color and the flavor die. So they have to add color and flavor. And nutrients. So they typically have ascorbic acid or something like that. So anyway, those are like more like processed food. Ultra processed food is that you couldn't even make that food at home by yourself. It requires machinery and a whole lot of science. So like Doritos, the flavoring on the chips, what's that made out of? Good God. I don't know if you've seen videos, but they like spray paint it on, right? And so again, this is not to vilify it. That's not the point. The point is, when you eat a lot of ultra processed food, the trick of what it's doing to you is that your brain doesn't even recognize that it's eating food. You're getting this chemical response of like the benefits of eating food, like dopamine from eating this stuff. Like you're like, whoa, it tastes so good, right? When you have your first, I don't know, lick of an ice cream cone, or like those drumsticks are so good, right? But they're so bad for you. It's not even, I think they stopped calling them ice cream. They're called something else, like frozen snacks, because they're not allowed to call them ice cream. It doesn't resemble cream anymore. But when you have your first bite, or when you eat, you get to the bottom of the drumstick, Benji, come on now, that hardened chocolate at the bottom, like life is good. But the trick is that your brain lights up with all this delight from the experience, but your body actually doesn't recognize this stuff as food. So that's why you're still hungry. And that's why you can eat so many Lay's potato chips. That's why you can eat so much like fake pizza. And so it's this weird process of gorging yourself, putting in so much and never being full. That's the rub with ultra processed food. But what else does that sound like, Benji? Does that sound familiar with maybe some of the work we're doing?
Sounds like pornography, if you ask me.
Yeah, and then absolutely, like you don't.
Seriously, yeah.
There's never enough. It's never enough, and it also tricks your brain into getting excited, and then it tells your body to be excited, but it doesn't actually feed you what you need, and so you
Mhm.
get sicker because you're gorging yourself on content. And this could be
Mhm.
even just social media, but porn is obviously
Yeah.
clearly like that. But we're now living in this world where we get so much fake stuff and we feel so weird because of it. And we have to figure this out because I don't want to become like the health space. I was researching last night and there's just really a war on information. Like there are people who can support with data that veganism is the only way to go. And you can also get reams of data proving that the carnivore diet is the only way to go. So it's really like a quagmire. But
Mhm.
what it looks like is that everybody's body, based on their lineage, is different. So what their needs are is different. So you have to find a customized solution for you. And the same thing is true, I would say, of social media, right?
Mm.
Sleep. In the connection podcast, it's really clear what kind of connection do you need and how often. That's a you thing that you have to figure out. Nobody else can figure that out for you. Does that make sense, Benji? I know I'm
Yeah.
going on a bit of a tirade here.
Yeah, 100%. I think everyone's algorithm is different and is trained based on what we feed it and is interesting. Uh, and so sometimes when I see like my wife's feed on anything, or uh, it's very pure, and it kind of like represents a very pure intention and desire to learn about cooking. And at least for her, I don't look at people's feed often, so she's the only reference I have,
Sure.
right? But I mean, like your feed, for example, is like, I'm guessing, AI and health stuff. I don't know. You know
Yeah,
what I'm saying?
exactly.
So it's like,
Guilty as charged.
that's like, I don't know. I haven't spent enough time in my social media to actually train it to do anything productive, because all it
Sure,
knows
sure,
is
sure.
I'm a male in my 30s, and I don't trust that information that it's going to feed me anything useful or healthy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could imagine your wife just watching like hugging random stranger videos with heartwarming music and that just
Mm.
makes her cry, and then she goes and cooks delicious baked goods.
Yeah.
Um yeah, well that's interesting because it is a feedback loop. So my wife just got into ChatGPT this week. You know, everybody
Mm.
knows about it, but I think I'm talking to different people and everybody's actually finding their own rhythm and timing in terms of like having the epiphany of like, oh my God, this is actually really amazing, right? My wife just had that this week and she was talking to it about spiritual stuff. And she's like, I love how straightforward it is because it doesn't say, well, in my opinion. It's like she's asking it about God and spirituality and all this stuff. And she said that it said to her that it doesn't have a soul, ChatGPT, but it's a reflection of you based on your queries and what you think. So it's a digital mirror to you. So think about your algorithms as a digital mirror. It's just a reflection of what you are looking for and how you use the internet, right? And so again, same with your physical health right now as a reflection of many choices over time. It's a mirror about your relationship with yourself in respect to health. And the more ultra processed food you have, the more that your body is thrown into a very confused state where it's overfed junk and it malnourished the good stuff, right? The stuff that it actually needs, the vitamins and the nutrients, the minerals, the stuff that really gives us strength and clarity. And so, but I really feel like digitally it's the same thing. We cannot avoid the digital revolution that we're building, that we're actively a part of. Every time we engage with our phones or our computers, we are not just a part of it, like we are constructing it one
Yeah.
data point at a
Mhm.
time, right?
100%, yeah.
And so are we getting the stuff that nourishes us? You know, are we using WhatsApp to connect with people? I was just leaving messages with people last night. I love it. I love leaving because I'm old, so I had answering machines growing up. It feels like that, just leaving a nice message with somebody, knowing that they're going to listen to it at some point, and then they get back to me when they feel like it. That is a part of my connection cocktail that I need is WhatsApp specifically. It never feels good on Facebook, by the way. Messenger. It's gotta be in WhatsApp. Telegram, no way. Kakao, don't even
Mhm.
talk to me about Kakao. It's gotta be only in WhatsApp. It's very strange. That's like my communication love language online is specific to one app. So if it goes away, I might fall into deep problematic mental state. But yeah, the point is like finding your whole foods digitally. Like what, like, so whole foods are foods that occur in their most natural state, right? And so that's why organic foods are really healthy, because they have less inhibitors, like, different poisons and stuff that they were raised in, so that you can get them, especially if they're in good soil. That's why a lot of people are raising their own food, because they can control like how alive the food is that they're eating. And the more alive food that you eat, the more alive that you feel. And then there's like kind of processed food is kind of dead in many cases.
Mhm.
It's some of it is like kimchi is actually a processed food, right? But it's resurrected food because it died and it came back to life stronger than ever, right? So it's like the resurrection food. But then there's ultra processed food, which is zombie food. It's like some
Yeah, yeah,
freakish monster Frankenstein food that. And so think about that mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally. There's things
yeah,
that we feed ourselves in terms of content, conversations that we have,
yeah.
thoughts that we have. There's definitely ultra processed thoughts of like hating myself, obsessing over my mistakes. These are not healthy.
There's a common question that people have, especially in like the singles core arena, is that like, how do you not go gravitate towards things? Because it's a slippery slope, especially in our culture, right? It's everywhere. It's unavoidable. I mean, for me, I can't pass a Chick-fil-A without stopping. I mean, I can, but most of the time, like it's like $8 for a chicken sandwich deluxe and some fries and some Chick-fil-A sauce, and
Is
I
that
eat it.
cheap
And
for you?
$8 for a meal? Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, in the
Okay.
States for sure. And then and I just when I eat it, I'm like, oh, like I can't help like moan, I'm like moaning in my car alone when when I'm eating Chick-fil-A. And then I
Mm.
feel terrible afterwards every
Yeah.
time. I
Yeah.
regret that. But it's so good, right? And so my point is that it's everywhere. And so what I found is helpful for me is and when I advise like single folks especially is make hard rules. It's like you can make rules about like only eat this types of food, but sometimes it's helpful to say like I don't eat this types of food or I don't go down this route. Or for example, it's like, for a lot of single folks, it's helpful to say like I don't have one-on-one conversations with the opposite gender alone, in a exclusive setting, like in a WhatsApp chat or in a room together. Or I don't go to the bar. Like if you're avoiding alcohol, you just say I just don't hang around that crowd. I don't go to bars, I don't go to parties, right? I don't go to the Super Bowl. And so for me, it's helpful. Like the other week, we were at Harris Teeter, a grocery store here, and I was looking for ice cream, and I spent a good 5 minutes looking for ice cream because Hitoe says never anything with food coloring or high fructose corn syrup. That's like the rule that she has. And so I looked everywhere down the ice cream aisle for ice cream, and I couldn't find it. And eventually, I found an ice cream that's vanilla flavored, that has no corn syrup in it, no color food coloring. I was like, oh, this is the one. And so our rule, it helps us just to avoid stuff, and we naturally gravitate towards things that are healthier, things that are better, right? And
Mm.
obviously, the obvious one is like social media, digital use. Have some rules, like you're saying, we all have a unique blueprint of how we can navigate our online use, and we just make hard rules for ourselves. Like I don't go down that rabbit hole. I don't engage in these types of activities. I don't do that. Like for me, for example, uh, this is just me. Like, I don't know anyone that does this, but I don't go to YouTube for videos. I go to Google for videos, right? Because it's so easy to be sucked down the YouTube rabbit hole. Because Google, you can just search for videos in a video tab and watch videos there and then jump off. And so that's like a hard line that works for me. But you can, for porn use, you could have a whole bunch of different rules you set for yourself. It's like I just don't engage in this. I don't do that. And chances are you're not going to be led down the dopamine hit trail to eventually acting out in that way, right?
Mm. Yeah, I know somebody won't mention his name, but he's
Please
doing great
don't.
right now.
Yeah.
And it was actually just no scrolling across the board. He's just not going to scroll. And that rule that he set for himself has transformed his life as of
Wow.
now, right? It might not
Mm.
be the one thing that saves him forever, but for now, it was a massive turning point in his own sanity, because now it's just like this hard and fast rule that has allowed him the bandwidth to deal with everything else. So it's just not an option. And so these are all like identity choices. And you'll hear this online, and it's true, but it's hard, which is, if you are going to actually radically transform, you need to actually shift your entire identity. And so an example is, let's say you let's say I can use a real life example,
Yeah.
which is embarrassing, but
All right.
everybody shut up. I really want, like, I saw this guy, I think I was in 6th grade. Nobody was skateboarding. This was like between Tony Hawk in the, like late 80s, maybe 87 or something, and then like what skateboarding turned into. So it was really underground, but I saw one guy and I was like, that is the quintessence of cool. Like, I need to embody that. So I was like, how do I do what that guy's doing? And so I shifted my identity to become a skater, right? I loved the word. I started reading the magazines. And then what you realize, anybody out there who's into skating, is there's an entire identity that you essentially acquire. Now it's like it's more broad because you can wear tight pants and skateboard, but back then there's like a cookie cutter life that you get. There's a certain kind of music that every skater used to listen to. There's only like ska and punk, or punk ska. It's like kind of 1.5 genres of music. There was a certain type of clothing, and there's only certain limited shops that you could buy these things at. There's an attitude, which is very rebellious. Like there's a language that you learn about skateboarding. So it's like it becomes who you are. I am a skater. I am a skater. And that's an identity statement. People say, oh, there's a skater. And then you're like, yeah, I'm one of them.
Yo, guys, if you are struggling with your sexual integrity, you want to quit porn and masturbation, but you don't know where to start, you've tried everything, there's something you haven't tried, you have not tried, going to our completely free webinar at highnew.org. It is a completely awesome and free and very impactful webinar that's about 30 minutes. It's going to be good. It's good. It's really good. Check it out, highnew.org, if you want to get serious about breaking free from porn and masturbation, or maybe you're kind of serious, maybe on the fence, and just curious. Check it out. Go to highnew.org, and that is a place for you to start to get your life together. All right, see ya.
Right? And it's also true of religion. I know that when people witness, this is a huge part of it, of kind of hanging out with a group of people and becoming that group of people is a very different thing. Those are two very different, like, oh yeah, I hang out with this group of people, and then feeling like I'm totally one of these people is a shift in your view of yourself and how you conduct yourself. And the same is true of, yeah, I don't watch porn anymore, right? It's like that, you say that, I say that with a great deal of conviction, because we've crossed that threshold. That's who we are now. It's like, it's not an option for me. Obviously you can't avoid it. Like, it pops up. Everyone, oh my God, there's a pop-up when we were trying to watch a movie with my kids, and I was like, my whole family was there, and just this pop-up of girls with no shirts. I was like, for God's sakes. So I just closed it and be like, guys, we have a little talk.
We're going to stay off that website. You're watching your movies.
So annoying. Anyway, so it's in that sense unavoidable. But even when I'm exposed to it, it's not like, oh my God, I gotta, disappear for a while and just binge now that I've been triggered. It's like, no, that took some time, but it's just our identity is the point. So these identity statements it almost comes first. I don't know. I'd like to hear your opinion on this, but it's kind of like you have to say, I am that person before you really have become it, because it becomes, if that's your skeletal structure, is I am this person, therefore I need to behave this way. I don't think it's the other way around where you first force your
Yeah, yeah,
behavior until you start to identify as
yeah.
being like that. Would you
I was
agree?
having, yeah, yeah. On that point, I was having a conversation with a brother who doesn't really believe in. He kind of believes in things of our faith movement, and he was asking me like, I want to believe more, and he's like, I'm like 40% convicted. Not
Hmm.
I'd like to be 80, 90, 100% convicted in the blessing specifically.
Sure.
And he was asking me like, how do I become convicted? How do I increase my conviction?
Hmm.
And the simple answer I gave him is just that, like, decide. I think the people that are most fervent in their beliefs, they just decide like this is worth fighting for. And I'm just gonna go all in. And I think when you see someone that's like that, they're just all in. They don't care about who's watching, who's not watching, what people say or think. I believe this and I'm gonna shout it from the mountaintops. And I think that just comes with a decision more than it is a, what can I do to over time increase my belief in this thing? You just kind of say, okay, hands up, surrender. I'm going to be this person now. I'm
Yeah.
going to be an all in chumbo, chungshimwan, whatever it is. You get the idea. I
I
was going to
feel
go
like
the
you're
other,
just about to
I was going to
take
go,
flight.
I was going to go the other extreme,
I see.
the opposite of,
Yeah,
anyway.
let's not. We don't need duality right now. Yeah, and so I mean, to be honest, that to use this specific analogy
Yeah.
of ultra process is like, my family has been through a specific health journey. We used to think something was healthy and we thought we were healthy, and then just years of iterating and problems and problem solving has forced us to be in a position where we do more research than the average person, just because I was thrown off kilter because of sleep stuff that I'm still trying to figure out, and it's deep and it runs deep, and it looks like I was really feeding myself the wrong stuff for so long that now I'm doing back payments, and I wasn't even eating a lot of junk food. I was just eating the wrong stuff for me as a person, and so now I have to figure that out. But because of that, now it's just very clear with my wife and I, like, when we go to the grocery store, we look down entire aisles and we're like, no, there's nothing there for us. It's not even like I don't want this, or should I, shouldn't I? It's like, oh, there's nothing in this aisle. There's no food, because our concept of food and our identity in respect to health is like, no food down there. Keep on going. No food down there. And actually, in big supermarkets, most aisles are like, oh, we don't belong there. Okay, so we just keep on going and we find our sections and we get our food and then we get out. And that's just really clarifying, because there's no wrestling match inside of us. It's like we align our actions with our beliefs about what, like in this case, what is health, right? And so I think it's the same too with pornography. Let's start there. Is like, there's just certain websites that I haven't even typed in. Like the main, because, I quit porn before a lot of these big websites like Pornhub and all that stuff. So I've never even typed in those words online. So it's not like a thing that I am like, I have a P typed out. I'm like, oh my God, I need to call somebody. It's like, oh no, it's similar to like walking down the street. You see two paths. There's one path which is like a dark alley, and there's this guy punching his fist with brass knuckles and a knife, and then there's like little blood on the ground. And then there's another path which is just like, your best friend smiling and waving. Is like, which path are you gonna go down? It's kind of laughable. Because why would you? Well, let's see what this guy has to say with the brass knuckles. Maybe he's a nice guy. No,
Yeah.
you stay away from that guy and you go towards your friend. And so, in this analogy, that's what porn is. It's gonna beat the crap out. It's gonna beat the crap out of your hopes and your dreams. It's gonna leave you withered and feeling terrible. Go towards your friend or go towards the light. You have to identify what those two things are, and make yourself a person that 100% of the time goes towards your friend. Because why would you go towards the guy with the brass knuckles and the knife? Why would you
I think
ever do that?
I think in that analogy, the reason people do is because they're half blind and it's just not clear.
Sure.
It's like they can't see. People can't see the guy with the brass knuckles and their friends. It's just like chaos. It's loud noises. People are screaming, and it's maybe a little brighter over here, a little darker over here. Well, I don't know. And so I think just without clarity, and that's like the whole North Star concept, right? Is just being
Yeah.
clear about where we're going. And as things clear up, it just becomes more like, okay, this is an obvious choice that this is where I'm going, you know?
Yeah, and on a more serious note, I mean, I do know I've known in my life women, mother figures that I've had, and also younger ladies who have been in abusive, physically, mentally, emotionally abusive relationships, and
Mm.
they tolerate it typically for way too long because that's part of their identity, and they don't understand it. They don't say it. They don't say I'm worthless. Maybe some do, but for the most part, they just feel like they in some way somehow deserve it. And it's only when that thing clicks where they say I'm better than this, I don't need this, that they extract themselves from that abusive relationship. But I've always seen porn as being the abuser in an abusive relationship, and people go to porn based on these false promises. They end up getting abused by it because they feel like crap after, right? But then they don't know their value, so they end up going back. It's the exact same thing. It's just more ominous because it's not a person, it's a giant entity, and it's a $1 billion industry, and there's all these waves of it, but it's still metaphorically the same, that you're in this relationship with something that's abusing you and you continue to go back. That's that can only be broken when your identity becomes I am a person who is better than this, and you feel it in your bones. And that's where God comes in, right? Because when you contrast, just compare them for a hot second. A person staring at other people who are either being paid or coerced into the act of sex on a screen that you'll never meet, being stimulated by that versus, I don't know, connecting to the infinite source of all wisdom and love. They're not even comparable, but our emotions, like you said, when things are fuzzy, it's kind of like, it's kind of light over there, but maybe that's like a furnace. Maybe I shouldn't go because the furnaces are light, and that's kind of dark, but maybe it's just like, it's okay.
Maybe it's not
And then,
that bad. Yeah.
yeah. When you're saying it's a little fuzzy, I thought you meant like they look down the alleyway, in that dark alleyway. It's like, oh, is that my friend? And they can't see. It's a guy with brass knuckles.
Yeah.
It's going to stab them. Like, oh,
Yeah,
that kind of
no,
looks like my
more
friend,
apt.
Derek.
That's more apt for sure. Yeah.
And then they see somebody waving at them and like, why is that person waving at me? Because they don't know it's their friend. So yeah, I think that's very apt analogy, is that you don't even know your goals in this beautiful life is beckoning until you spend some time getting a vision. So think about that. In that analogy, Benji, let's just sit here for a little bit.
Yeah.
It's about vision. You can't see if you don't have vision. So if your vision is poor, right, then you can't see the difference between this alley and the light. It's very blurry. But the vision and your acute kind of ability to see clearly what it is that you're looking for makes it clear who is the guy with the knife and the brass knuckles and who is the friend waving. And that requires you to take more time to steep yourself in a vision, and that gives you vision.
Yeah.
I've never put those two words together, vision and vision, the same word, but different meaning, like a vision for your life with your clarity of vision in your days and your decisions. So they're one and the same, but I guess it's two parts of the same entity. Forming an overall vision and orienting yourself according to that vision gives you clear vision throughout your days in the decisions that you make.
I think clarity comes from being present. I think we can only be truly, truly clear when we're not obsessed about the past and the mistakes and the shame that we carry with us, and the guilt and the anger and resentment from the past, or the anxiety and stress of the future. Yeah. Because when we do that, we're unclear. We think we know, but we don't. And so when people are making a vision, I think what trips people up most of the time is actually they're trying to understand things from a very, very like analytical and over analytical, and what's the word? Hyper analyzed. What's the term when you over analyze something?
Hyper analytical?
Yeah, it's like obsessive, hyper vigilantly trying to understand things, like make my goals for the future, which is great at times. But when you're trying to especially beat, unwanted behaviors and change, I think that clarity comes from really being present and looking down the alley and noticing what's down there, like stopping and noticing. Because when we're walking, like if you notice when you're walking down a street, if you're stressed, you will physically start to look down. Or if you're anxious, or you will look at the ground more, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I've
Yeah.
observed this myself, and I looked into it too. And when you're really in a state of just higher elevated emotions, you tend to look up at the sky more and forward. And obviously,
Interesting.
you tend to be more perceptive of sounds and sight and things around you. But when you're hyper, like just stressed out and living in the past or the future, it's like we tend to just not notice what's around us. And so I would say that's probably something I've never really thought about when we're creating North Stars and vision. Is we gotta really be present when we're creating that stuff, and it's through presence that it actually comes to fruition, right? Because the future, it's like it doesn't exist until we build it in the moment. It's unless we're actively focusing on our attention on what we're doing right now to build that thing. It's just a concept that is somewhere to come. So that's an angle I think will be helpful for some, is like be present to what's in front of you and notice it. And when you notice it, it becomes more clear. You know?
Yeah, it's beautiful. The state, the energy that you're plugged into dictates where you're looking, right? There's definitely, I remember hearing about a study where they looked at people who were more optimistic, see opportunities so much more, right? The people who have equal opportunities, those who are optimistic actually see the opportunities, and those who are kind of in a negative state don't see them because they're not looking on they're looking on the ground for the garbage, to look to complain and all this, rather than looking up for the opportunities. And that's really cool. Uncle Dave has always been like the best example of that, of like, he almost welcomes challenges. I mean, he's chosen a difficult kind of business model where everything changes all the time, but where he's succeeded above and beyond what's normal is because he's comfortable in those rocky seas, and when everybody else is freaking out, he sees the opportunities. And that's a discipline, actually, of being still when everything looks like it's falling apart, that you're looking for the opportunities. And that's true of people who have, I don't want to get into the context because it's very political, but there is certain training that police don't get, that they should get, that combats get, like people in the Navy SEALs and all that, to train your reactions during stressful situations, right? So that you don't freak out when everybody's screaming and running in one direction, that you don't also start screaming and running that direction, because you're, as a police officer, supposed to be in a position to like calm the crowds, right? So you can't actually connect yourself to the energy that's all around you. You have to figure out, you have to calm yourself down and figure out what's going on and how am I needed. And think about how useful that would be from day to day in life, because we get stressed out when we look at an email, and then we have to be able to calm ourselves down and be like, okay, where's the opportunity in this? Or like, what's really going on? And you can't do that when you're possessed by an emotion, or when you just follow your first reaction and just go all in on that. You got to kind of take the time. And this is what whole foods thinking does, is like, what is my original mind thought process for this situation, rather than the ultra process, which is just like people living off reaction. Ultra process emotions, let's talk about that, is Facebook. It's commenting on somebody and fighting online, and now you're filled with all these junk emotions from fake communication. Think about that. You're communicating technically with people by tippy typing, but you've removed the humanity, and it's the worst of you talking to the worst of them, and the result is you both feel crappy. That's ultra processed communication. Versus sitting down and talking with somebody and be like, how do you feel today?
Let me read the verbatim mission statement of Meta, which, by the way, is Instagram, Facebook, and WhatsApp, and a bunch of other stuff.
Don't talk about WhatsApp.
Quote, giving people the power to build community and bring the world closer together.
by by tearing it down one conversation about politics at a time.
So talk about ultra processed. The intention is good. It's beautiful.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Connection, community, building a better world, right? But when we go to the extremes of ultra processing connection itself and not giving a 1 hour, like the comparison between 1 hour of scrolling on Instagram, which they don't care about people's mental health, by the way. If they did, they
Yeah.
would say, hey, you've been on Instagram for 2 hours, take a break. But they don't do that. Versus spending an hour talking with someone or in a group or anything else, basically, it's like night and day, you know?
That's really interesting. That, yeah. Yeah, I mean, that could be a place where we actually do get more whole food forms of connection, if it was optimized for that. It's optimized for money, so that's all they care about,
Yeah,
because
it
they
is.
could easily have, okay, out of every 10 things that you scroll, let's say you're scrolling, and out of every 10 posts that you see on Instagram, Facebook, whatever,
Mhm.
it's a picture that you've chosen, like the most meaningful person, especially now with AI, who's just like, hey,
Mhm.
how you doing? Do you want to talk to me? Or like,
Accountability partner, like just
yeah,
checking in,
accountability
just checking
partner,
in.
or
Yeah,
just a reminder of like, hey, is there anything else that you need to be doing right
it could
now?
it could do that easily if people's well-being was the number one priority, but it's
Yeah,
not. Understandably, I get it. It's a
sure,
business.
sure.
I get it, but it's not. But to say your priority is connecting the world, but it's actually not. It's disingenuous. It really is.
Yeah.
Sorry, Meta.
Yeah, so I hope this analogy works, this ultra process, because if you think about, you know, ultra processed, let's say in terms of your physical health, there's food and there's also exercise, right? And we have a very sedentary lifestyle, and just doing things like walking now is becoming a trend. People are like, yo, are you doing that thing called walking? Be like, yo, I just heard about it. Yeah, my favorite
10,000
influencer
steps. Can you
walks.
hear that? 10,000? That's a lot of steps.
Yeah,
Whoa.
it's this new, I mean, because we are edging towards the whole Wally, paradigm, right? Um, but yeah, finding out how this analogy applies to your physical health, your mental and emotional and spiritual health, and what is real nourishment and what is fake nourishment. You could be together with physical people, and the quality of your conversation could lend towards ultra processed, meaning gossip. Gossip is absolutely ultra processed connection, because you're communicating, you're connecting, but it's centered on something pretty horrific, and in which case it robs nourishment from your spirit. You feel gross after a gossip session. Or if you don't feel gross, your ego is now full with all of its nutrients. And so now it's like, yeah, I'm right. And that person sucks. And your soul, your spirit is just totally malnourished on the side, vomiting, like just like so sick. So, yeah, even it's not just technology, it's what are you feeding your mind? Is it nourishing your mind, or is it robbing your mind of nutrients? Scrolling is unequivocally, absolutely, scientifically proven to rob nourishment from your brain after a certain amount. Again,
Yeah.
everybody has a threshold and it depends what you're looking at, but it makes you more ADD, right? So that, and then emotionally, what nourishes you and what robs you of your nutrients emotionally, and then
Yeah.
spiritually, and then obviously physically as well.
And it also is inculcating people to believe things by scrolling. You know, they've done studies on if you scroll for a certain amount of time and then immediately of like other women, and then you immediately look at your spouse, you will, you know, immediately look at your spouse as less attractive, right?
Mm.
And you can see this clearly in like men and women. You know, there's this weird phenomenon going on at our gyms here in North Carolina where all the dudes look the same. Like it's it's horrendous to see, but it's cute, but it's just so clear that they're consuming the same stuff. Like the haircut, I don't know what it's called. It's like this shaggy haircut. It's I think it's an influence from from K-pop, but it's that
uh,
K-pop style haircut. But it's a bunch
uh,
of white dudes. It like these are teenagers by the way, kids, and they've got these tattoos, and it's just they're like flexing in the mirror, and it's just like everyone's the same, and so it lacks it just lacks beauty, like true essence of what God made them to be, beautiful, right? A man and woman. And so it kind of feels like everything's the same and everyone's the same. But my point on this is that when we start to see like women, for example, as like this is beautiful, this is what beauty is, we've immediately like removed our ability to see them uniquely as like God's daughter, right? Or men as God's son, when we see like, okay, this is a standard of beauty. And I think it's okay. It's reasonable to feel like that because of what we consume in our world. But we have to be able to like see that and take note and be like, okay, maybe my preference of how my spouse or future spouse looks isn't based in reality, or how she acts or how we are intimate together is not based in something healthy or heavenly or something that I actually want it to be based on, but maybe it's based on something else. I think it takes a very insightful, wise person, a self-reflective person, to step back and be like, okay, that's not, I have the clarity that that's not what I want. It's not healthy. And importantly, it's not accurate. It's just not accurate, portrayal of that. So I notice it mostly in men nowadays, but I think, yeah, for women too, it's kind of like this, like the whole Korean, right? You know what I'm saying? Like we talked about this, I think before, just like the whole Korean way of beauty is just like, I'm not picking on Korea. It's just that we interact a lot with Korea. So it's easy to pick on, but it's like, it's kind of seeping into many cultures, it seems.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I'm not trying to.
British guy that tried to be a Korean woman, remember?
Korean woman.
So obviously, I don't know if you saw that guy. Anyway, I think he reversed some of those surgeries. But
yeah,
I want to say that what you're saying is absolutely true, and it's the next step beyond. So the framework is like, are the conversations or the content or whatever you're doing, is it nourishing your brain, your heart, your body, and your spirit? But what you're saying is the next level out is, are these things nourishing your relationships? Because those are living, breathing entities in and of themselves. So is content robbing you of a healthy relationship, a healthy viewpoint of your spouse? Or is it poisoning you little by little? Every time you compare, it's poisoning the purity, the sanctity of your marriage that's meant to be unique and its own thing, but now you're kind of comparing it and you're trying to force it to be something that it's never intended to be, and you're playing a losing game. That's ultra processed, comparison. So and if you're single, then it's like your relationship with your parents, is it taking away time and energy and poisoning your relationship with who you want to be and your friends and your dreams, your hopes and your dreams? Because it's very clear that, they even show that testosterone levels in men plummet when men watch porn and when they masturbate. You become less of a strong, empowered man. You're giving away your literal actual power. The spice of life comes as a man largely from hormones like your testosterone. It's like this drive that wants you to kind of move forward and lift things and move things out of the way, metaphorically and physically, at the gym with your face tattoos. But yeah, I think that's the next thing, is like, just ultimately, are your habits feeding you nutrients and making you a stronger, healthier, happier person that feels more comfortable in their own skin? Or is it robbing you of nutrition that ultimately makes you sicker and sicker, and your relationships sicker and sicker? So it's a good framework, and you can look at it. Just look at your day, how you spend your time and energy. Like I said, that guy that I mentioned before, he just took out scrolling from his life, and all of a sudden he regained not only time, but he regained himself, like his attention. It's like, it's like he snapped out of a hypnotic spell, and he's like, whoa, what was I doing? Right? And so that's a beautiful thing. So consider the things that you're doing that are robbing you of nutrition, and also consider the things that give you a sense of belonging and power and clarity, and do more of that. Take more nutritious things.
Yeah, you're on that point. You were talking earlier about finding your people, like feeling like this, I'm part of this group. In my life, I recognize that in my relationship with music, I've been playing music and singing since I was 12, right? And every time, until recently, until 32 years old, 20 years later, I have always not seen myself as a musician. And it was a very subconscious belief because every time I saw musicians or anytime I performed something like at our church, my thought internal dialogue was like, oh, this is their thing. I don't know if like you've ever experienced it. Like
Yeah,
this music is their thing. And I'm borrowing their
for sure.
hobby. It's not and it was weird to realize that. I'm like, why do I feel like this? This is not music. Like I'm a musician. I love music. I play music almost every day in our home, like with my kids, with Hitoe. I love music. And so now I've just like changed that. I'm just like, I'm a musician. I'm going to talk to music about music with people. I'm going to play music with people. Anytime there's an instrument around, I'm going to pick it up and we're going to jam, you know? And so I was thinking about that when you were sharing. So I appreciated that kind of clarity for me too.
Yeah, nice. If you're really gonna be a musician, though, you need an obnoxious hat. That's
Mm.
just, you gotta choose. Are you gonna be a floppy hat kind of guy, or are you gonna be one of those really silly looking Los Angeles former famous like cowboy hats made out of leather with way too many accoutrements on it kind of hats? Are
Okay,
you
sure.
gonna get like a pointy hat? Yeah, it's
When
not
I have my hat,
optional.
then I will be a musician. Is what
Yeah,
you're saying.
I'll give you a
Got it.
hat. I'll get you started. I'll prime
You'll
you.
decide my hat for me. Yeah, it makes
No,
sense.
I mean you can reject it, but it's like we
No,
were
I can't.
just saying, you need a vision for this hat. So,
I got you.
all right, everybody. I think that's pretty clear. I just really wanted to. I've been on a long journey with health, trying to
Mm.
figure it out, and I've been increasingly more aware of what ultra process means because you hear about it, you hear it's not good. I think it's across the board. Everybody says that it's not good. The degrees to which that it's bad are debatable depending on who you listen to. Um, but I just really saw that junk food is obviously not great for us, but there's also junk food in terms of friends. We can have entire friends that are junk food for us that we shouldn't have in our lives. We have
Mm.
junk food thoughts, junk food habits. So the less junk food we have, the healthier we will be in terms of our mind, heart, body, and soul. So figure out what is junk and what is health for you and do that and get support and become a healthy person as a form of your identity. And it's like you don't need to manage symptoms that disappear, and the symptoms disappear when you start just living according to what you actually need and what your body wants, right? So yeah, things like porn disappear when you lead a healthy life. You just don't need them because it's a symptom of a brokenness inside of you. So yeah, thanks everybody for
True.
watching. If you watch and you watch this far on YouTube, that's crazy. I want to hear from you. Why do you watch us on YouTube? I'd love to know. And why do you not listen? And what would you like us to change or make better? Please let us know.
Yeah.
See ya, everybody.
Bye.
My friend, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening to the episode. If you enjoyed it, I want to give you guys a little bit of action. If you are someone that wants to receive the blessing in the future, but you're struggling with your sexual integrity, or you are someone that is blessed currently and you're struggling, then we do have an opportunity for you. It's a completely free, totally free, easy to set up webinar for you guys. Go to highnoon.org. It's the first thing on the homepage. It's a webinar that's free. It's good. I put a lot of effort into it. I did, and our team did. So check it out, highnoon.org, so you can get started about getting serious about your sexual integrity. That's where you need to start. All right, do that.